Cardenas. So I'm here to discuss our results, the data for the writing CBA. I'm also here to guide, right, for the lesson plan. What I do want to start off with is that based on the data, we did see how a lot of your students did really well on your nouns, the verbs, and the punctuation. Especially on the punctuation itself, they scored at a 99%. So we see a pattern of how all of these students right here are scoring at, you know, the 100%, and no one below the 80s. I do see one of the areas of needs would be your homophones right here. If we notice that the score based on it, even your highest students were scoring at, you know, like the 70s, the 60s. So we do want to focus a little bit on that to see what happened there. Would you know by chance the TEAC for your homophones?
Not by memory, we can look it up.
So we have the homophones right here. 4.3D.
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 I believe it's 4.3D.
And 4.3D right here. So if you could help me out on what it says there.
It says, identify, use, and explain the meaning of homophones, such as rain and rain.
So what would be like the clue words in order for us to create like a lesson?
I would think that it would be those identify, use, and then of course explain.
So if we look at it based on our lesson plan, in order for us to route over to maybe help the students, guide them, right? We need to create lesson plans that help us or help the students identify. They have to use something and then explain, of course. So thinking about a lesson plan more or less, you know your students, what do you think, going back on, do you remember more or less the lesson plan that was done?
I feel that maybe on this one they didn't score because they only got to choose. So I feel that the kids lacked a lot of vocabulary.
Choosing. So maybe work on vocabulary. And what do you think would be some good vocabulary jobs?
I would think that we could create maybe, I don't know, some target centers or something where the kids can work. Maybe some task cards and like get them exposed to more terminology, to more vocabulary itself.
And how do you think it, because I know like a lot of the students need that, not only like the background knowledge, but need to grab their attention, right? So I know a lot of them, it's like, oh, like they see it, it's like, oh, I'm not really interested. So how do you think more or less that you could hook them, engage them?
Okay, I could think of maybe two ways that we can do it. One, maybe it could be like a media piece.
Okay.
Maybe we can look for something that would grab their attention, maybe a cartoon or misuse homophones, or if not actual objects, maybe bringing in like the actual flower, like where they can see, oh, cookie, flower, how do you spell it, versus the flower, the plant, and for them to look at the spelling, because that's a huge thing about homophones.
Yes, that's a wonderful idea. I know that they're like, not only are they listening to the word, but they're actually exposed to it. Like, you know, I see the word, but how do I determine the meaning? But I think that would be a great idea because they're able to see it. Is there any like a specific organizer that you used for them, or something that you have in mind that maybe like
I would think that we could also do like, first of all, like maybe they first have to see it like in a picture and a word. Like maybe one of the centers could be that. Get them exposed to more of the homophones.
And based on this, I know that you have about 17 students. Do you have an idea more or less of how many centers you'll be using?
I would probably do between 5 and 6 centers, depending if I want them working like in groups of 4 or 3.
Okay. And we did go back to the vocabulary, right? That you want them to be exposed to the vocabulary. are all these centers going to be just focused on one, or do you think it would be a good idea maybe to implement, some identifying, some using?
It would have to be all of them, but then also target the ones that are tested like in STAR. Because if you look at some data, like I know that's the most commonly ones that I had written down were like there, your, or it's and it is. So maybe those are some of the things that I had thought about implementing in a lesson.
So I know that I've seen around to, for example, the there, they could see it as like maybe like a person. I've seen it too where that little I in their notes, they convert it into like a little man, right? So that they're able to see, oh, it's a person, right? It's there. And then there with that R, they round it, like they put like, they draw like a little arrow, like, oh, that means a place, right? And then with this one, it was the apostrophe, they, I identify it as separation of the words. So those little things that they could use as, so we have also as in the centers, right? So we were going back to the centers. What do you think would be another, so you mentioned something about the task cards, right? Do you have an idea for another center?
Another center could be STAR formatted questions, maybe where they're really applying the questions. I would say those that are STAR STEM formatted. Also maybe technology. One of the centers could be technology, where they play a game, an interactive game using.
And question stems itself, are you familiarized? I know we discussed it, but then the time ran out at the meeting and stuff like that with the leap forward. If anything, are you familiarized more or less, or would you need like a little bit of help?
No, I feel that I'm very comfortable with it.
Okay, awesome.
But if not, I could always go back.
Yes, of course. Just know that we're always here. And then if anything, we could always come back to. I could always meet with you tomorrow to see how the lesson went, and we could develop more on like the leap, going based on leap forward, and look at the questions itself as well.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.